The wrestling world just exploded with a revelation nobody saw coming, and trust me when I say this changes everything we thought we knew about one of the biggest stars to ever step foot in a WWE ring. The Undertaker, the legendary Deadman himself, has just pulled back the curtain on something that's been whispered about in locker rooms for decades but never confirmed until now. We're talking about Hulk Hogan's secret tunnel, and the footage that's finally surfaced is absolutely mind-blowing. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss what's coming next on this channel. For years, stories circulated backstage about Hulk Hogan having special privileges that no other wrestler enjoyed during his time at the top of professional wrestling. The Hulkster wasn't just the biggest draw in the business, he was practically untouchable, a golden boy who could do no wrong in the eyes of Vince McMahon and the WWE brass. But what most fans never knew was just how far those privileges extended, and The Undertaker has finally decided it's time the world learned the truth. During a recent appearance that sent shockwaves through the wrestling community, the Phenom opened up about something he witnessed countless times during his early years with the company, something that bothered him and many other wrestlers who were grinding it out night after night while Hogan got treatment that seemed to come from another world entirely. The secret tunnel wasn't just some backstage hallway or a shortcut through the arena. This was a specially constructed passageway that allowed Hulk Hogan to enter and exit venues without ever having to deal with the crowds, the press, or even his fellow wrestlers if he didn't want to. The Undertaker explained that while most performers would arrive at arenas hours before showtime, dealing with fans, signing autographs, and going through the normal backstage routine, Hogan had his own private entrance that connected directly to his dressing room. The tunnel was kept secret from most of the roster, and only a select few people in the company even knew it existed. The Deadman remembers being a young wrestler, still finding his footing in WWE, when he first stumbled upon this arrangement and couldn't believe what he was seeing. What makes this revelation even more explosive is the footage that's now come to light. The Undertaker didn't just tell the story, he actually managed to get his hands on security camera recordings from back in the day that show Hogan using this private tunnel system. The grainy black and white footage shows the Hulkster arriving at various arenas through underground parking structures, being escorted through corridors that other wrestlers didn't even have access to, and emerging directly into a private area that had been set up exclusively for him. While other superstars were navigating through crowds of fans and dealing with the chaos of arena backstage areas, Hogan was gliding through his own personal pathway like he was royalty, completely separated from everyone else. The Undertaker's decision to reveal this now comes after years of frustration that built up over what he saw as a two-tier system in professional wrestling. He explained that during Hogan's prime years, the disparity between how the top guy was treated versus how everyone else was treated became impossible to ignore. Young wrestlers who were working their way up the card would show up early, stay late, do media appearances, sign autographs until their hands cramped, and basically do whatever was asked of them to help promote the shows. Meanwhile, Hogan would slip in through his secret entrance, do his match, cut his promo if needed, and disappear back through the tunnel without having to deal with any of the responsibilities that came with being a professional wrestler. The Deadman made it clear that this created resentment among the boys in the locker room, though most were too afraid to speak up about it at the time. The footage reveals something even more interesting about the extent of this special treatment. The tunnel system wasn't just at one or two major venues, it was implemented at multiple arenas across the country wherever WWE was running shows. This meant that significant resources and planning went into making sure Hulk Hogan never had to experience what every other wrestler dealt with on a regular basis. The Undertaker points out in the footage how you can see WWE staff members stationed at various points along these tunnels, essentially acting as personal security and guides for Hogan's private route. The level of coordination required to pull this off night after night shows just how important keeping the Hulkster happy was to the company's success at that time. One particularly revealing piece of footage shows a moment that The Undertaker says perfectly encapsulates the situation. The video captures Hogan walking through his private tunnel while in the regular backstage area, visible through a window in the footage. You can see other wrestlers waiting in line to use the single shared locker room facility. The contrast couldn't be more stark. While the man who was making millions and headlining WrestleMania after WrestleMania got his own private world, legends and future Hall of Famers were cramming into shared spaces and dealing with whatever accommodations were available. The Undertaker emphasized that this wasn't about jealousy of Hogan's success, it was about the principle of creating an environment where one person was so elevated above everyone else that it created division within the locker room. The Deadman also revealed that the tunnel system had some unexpected consequences that most people never considered. Because Hogan could avoid the normal backstage interactions, he became increasingly disconnected from the rest of the roster. The Undertaker recalls moments when important booking decisions were being made or when the boys needed to discuss match layouts and timing for shows, but Hogan would be nowhere to be found because he was sequestered in his private area access through the secret tunnel. This created logistical nightmares for agents and other wrestlers who needed to coordinate with him, but nobody dared complain too loudly because Hogan's status was untouchable during those years. The tunnel that was supposed to protect the company's biggest star from hassles actually ended up creating more problems than it solved. The footage also captures some fascinating moments that show just how elaborate this setup really was. In several clips, you can see catering being delivered specifically to Hogan's private area, medical staff making exclusive visits to check on him, and even what appears to be WWE executives having private meetings with him in spaces that were off limits to everyone else. The Undertaker points out that this level of separation meant that Hogan was essentially operating as his own entity within WWE, not really part of the regular roster structure but more like a special attraction who happened to work for the company. This created a weird dynamic where the man who was supposed to be the leader and face of WWE was actually the most isolated person in the entire organization. What really shocked The Undertaker, and what he wants fans to understand, is that this tunnel system and the special treatment it represented wasn't just about convenience or security. It was about maintaining a mystique and an aura around Hulk Hogan that the company believed was essential to his drawing power. The thinking was that if fans saw Hogan dealing with the same mundane realities as every other wrestler, some of the magic would be lost. So instead of having him be accessible and relatable, WWE went to extraordinary lengths to keep him separate and elevated. The Deadman argues that this approach might have worked for keeping Hogan's star power intact, but it came at a real cost to locker room morale and the overall culture of the company during that era. The revelation of this footage has sparked intense debate among wrestling fans and industry insiders. Some argue that Hogan earned that level of special treatment because he was carrying the company on his back and drawing unprecedented money. Others see it as evidence of everything that was wrong with the wrestling business during that period, where politics and favoritism created an unfair system that held talented wrestlers back. The Undertaker seems to fall somewhere in the middle, acknowledging that Hogan was indeed special and deserved to be treated as the top star, but questioning whether creating such an extreme separation was really necessary or beneficial in the long run. One of the most interesting aspects of the footage is what it reveals about WWE's priorities during the golden era of professional wrestling. The company was willing to invest substantial money and resources into maintaining Hogan's special status, building and maintaining these tunnel systems, staffing them appropriately, and keeping the whole operation secret from most of the roster and all of the fans. The Undertaker suggests that if even a fraction of that energy and investment had been put into developing other stars or improving conditions for the entire roster, WWE might have created an even stronger overall product. Instead, all the eggs were in one basket, and that basket had its own private tunnel system. The Deadman also touches on how this arrangement affected Hogan's relationships with other wrestlers. Because he was so isolated and protected, many guys on the roster never really got to know him as a person. They saw him in the ring and maybe crossed paths briefly, but there wasn't the camaraderie and brotherhood that typically develops among wrestlers who are traveling together and sharing experiences. The Undertaker believes this contributed to some of the political issues and backstage drama that plagued WWE during those years, because when you don't have personal relationships with your coworkers, it becomes much easier to engage in the kind of cutthroat behavior that was common in wrestling at that time. The footage that The Undertaker has revealed also shows moments that are almost comical in hindsight. There are clips of confused arena workers who clearly had no idea that these special tunnels existed, stumbling upon Hogan's private pathway and being quickly redirected by security. There are shots of other wrestlers actually walking right past the entrance to the tunnel without realizing what it was because it was so well disguised and protected. The level of secrecy and the lengths WWE went to in order to maintain it seem almost absurd when you watch it all laid out in these security recordings, but it was deadly serious business at the time. Looking at this situation now, The Undertaker reflects on how different things became as wrestling evolved and as his own career progressed. When he eventually reached the status of being one of WWE's top stars himself, he made a conscious choice not to request or accept the kind of special treatment that Hogan had enjoyed. The Deadman wanted to be one of the boys, to be accessible to the roster and to maintain the kinds of relationships that he felt were important for creating the best possible product. He acknowledges that his approach was different from Hogan's, and neither was necessarily right or wrong, but he wanted fans to know about this piece of wrestling history because it explains so much about how the business operated during a crucial period. The revelation of Hulk Hogan's secret tunnel also raises questions about what other hidden arrangements and special deals existed in wrestling that fans never knew about. The Undertaker has hinted that the tunnel system was just one example of many ways that top stars received treatment that would shock people if they knew the full details. As more time passes and more wrestlers feel comfortable speaking openly about the past, we're likely to learn about other secrets that were carefully guarded during wrestling's most secretive eras. This footage and The Undertaker's willingness to discuss it represent a new openness about wrestling history that helps fans understand the real story behind what they saw on television. The impact of this revelation on Hulk Hogan's legacy is something that will be debated for years to come. Does knowing about the secret tunnel and the extreme special treatment diminish his accomplishments, or was it simply a smart business decision by WWE to protect their most valuable asset? The Undertaker doesn't seem interested in tearing Hogan down, but rather in providing context and truth about a period of wrestling history that has often been mythologized without full understanding of what was really happening behind the scenes. The footage serves as a historical document that shows just how different the wrestling business was during those years compared to how it operates today. As we process this incredible revelation and the footage that supports it, one thing becomes clear. The The wrestling business has always been about more than what happens inside the ring, and the politics, privileges, and special arrangements that existed backstage were often just as important in shaping the industry as any match or storyline. The Undertaker's decision to reveal Hulk Hogan's secret tunnel gives us a window into that hidden world, and it changes how we understand one of wrestling's most iconic eras. Whether you see this as shocking evidence of favoritism or simply a logical way to handle the biggest star in the business, you can't deny that it's a fascinating piece of wrestling history that deserves to be known. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel because we'll be bringing you more incredible revelations and untold stories from the world of professional wrestling that you won't find anywhere else.